raids to the Branch Davidian compound. Undercover agents who had posed as members of the sect reported that Branch Davidian members were stockpiling automatic weapons, explosives, and vast quantities of ammunition. The ATF agents were given a go-ahead for a surprise raid on the ranch. The objective? To arrest the Branch Davidians' leader, David Koresh, on charges of possession of illegal weapons. But Koresh and his people were prepared. A local TV crew showed up hoping for an exclusive. The cameraman asked the neighborhood mailman for directions to the ranch and volunteered that there might be some trouble there. The mailman he spoke to was David Koresh's brother-in-law. By the time the 100 federal lawmen approached the compound, Koresh and his followers had them in their gun sights. This is what happened, as it happened, on February 28th, 1993.
Get my tripod.
I'm rolling.
Don't turn the camera off.
Tell me about what's going on out front.
When the gunfire was over, 4 federal agents and 6 of the Branch Davidians were dead. Officials and the families of the dead agents wanted to know why things had gone so terribly wrong. Reports circulated that the field commanders knew the Branch Davidians were forewarned. If that were so, why had they gone into almost certain ambush? At this point, the FBI stepped in. From here on, its trained negotiators would deal with the Branch Davidians barricaded inside, who now faced federal murder charges. This was the time to talk and to wait the Davidians out. 10 people were already dead, and inside the Davidians' fortress were all those women and children. This is what happened the next morning and in the following weeks.
Overnight, there seemed to be some movement toward settlement as word came that the women and children of the Branch Davidian cult would be released. By morning, 6 children had been handed over to federal agents, joining 10 others who'd been released earlier in the siege. Mid-morning, and something seemed to be in the air. Police closed roads. Tighter restrictions were placed on the press. More and more convoys of police rolled down the road into the compound. And ambulances raced toward the federal command post. Then, word of a deal.
I, David Koresh, agree upon the broadcasting of this tape to come out peacefully with all the people.
Koresh's taped religious message was played on a Dallas radio station in accordance with the arranged deal.
All the people here at the facility compound here, as y'all call it, will give ourselves over to the world.
Prison buses were brought in. Local hospitals put on standby. On March 2nd, cult leader David Koresh said he'd come out if his hour-long sermon was played on national radio. It was. He didn't. On March 19th, just a few more days, Koresh said. Then it was after Passover with its uncertain start and end dates. Now he's writing his interpretation of the biblical 7 seals.
The first seal is not done yet. Mr. Snyder says he's going to have to edit every one. Mr. Koresh does not have any more than a 9th grade education, so he does not write very well. So everything will have to be rewritten. So I figure 4 or 5 months tops.
And FBI sources say there may be another Passover next month. 2 months now, and Koresh has waited out the FBI and outlasted the media.
He was busy writing or doing a message and wasn't able to talk to him.
He's even snubbed his own attorney. About the only ones not losing patience are the fanatics, zealots, and the merely curious who've converged on Waco. Some estimates place the standoff's cost at nearly $10 million for hundreds of federal, state, and local officers, helicopters, aerial surveillance, and tanks, which, according to sources, are used sometimes for joyrides by bored agents. So the standoff drags on, lasting at this point even longer than the Persian Gulf War, as David Koresh continues to wait for a message from God.
After months of waiting and talking that led nowhere, the Justice Department finally agreed to let the FBI launch a tear gas assault designed to force Koresh and the others out of their fortress. It began in the pre-dawn hours of April 19th, the 51st day of the siege.
Early this morning, armored vehicles entered cult leader David Koresh's compound and began punching large holes in the walls. Koresh and about 90 of his followers are believed to be inside. So far this morning, one man is believed to have left the compound, all others believed to be still in it. It is not clear, however, exactly what is going on or has been going on. About 45 minutes ago, one of the federal agents' tanks punched a hole in the front door of the compound. Earlier, agents jumped out of the back of another armored vehicle and began tossing tear gas into what appears to be an underground bunker where most of the cult members are believed to be holed up. The wind is up outside the compound and much of the gas apparently was dispersed. Right now, you're looking at a live picture from outside the compound. About all that can be seen is damage done by the tanks and other armored vehicles.
The initial result was more weapons fire from inside. But within a few hours, things became very quiet. The FBI prepared for a final assault as the wind dispersed the clouds of tear gas that streamed from the central building. Then they saw the first flame shooting from a window above the front door. The afternoon coverage began shortly after 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This is what happened as it happened.
Camera up hot. Right now, please.
Some 6 hours after the FBI launched an operation trying to bring the 51-day-old standoff at the Branch Davidian cult compound just outside Waco, Texas to an end, the compound has been enveloped in smoke and flame. Vicki Maybury has been standing by in Waco, Texas for the entire duration of the standoff. She joins us now live. Vicki, what can you tell us about this fire?
John, just about 5 minutes ago, we saw tanks continuing to batter the compound, continuing to put gaping holes into the walls of the structure. We saw what looked like white, wispy smoke coming out, which usually is indicative of tear gas. The FBI has told us that they are using non-lethal tear gas to try to flush cult members out. And then suddenly, out of one of the second-floor windows, flames burst forth. And as you can see, it looks like at this point like the entire compound is just engulfed in flames.
Vicki, in one of the close-up pictures we saw, as you were speaking, we saw at least one cult member coming out of the front door of the compound. Obviously, this was not part of the FBI operation, the FBI plan.
This is definitely not part. We just got finished with the morning briefing about an hour and a half ago. They said what they were making these holes for is to pump in that tear gas. They said they were not trying systematically to tear the building down, but they were going to tear down farther portions of it and try to push the cult members into a central area that they could then make a really concerted effort to pump the tear gas in and try to force them out. But certainly a fire was not part of their plans at all.
Vicki, as I said, while you were speaking with us, we had a close-up of the front door area of the Branch Davidian compound. We saw what appeared to be one cult member leaving the compound. We have reports that another one has jumped from the roof. That could potentially be the same person. 95 people believed to be inside this building, 17 of those 95 people children. Some 37 people have left the compound since the standoff began 51 days ago. And we seem to see people in this picture, Vicki, which is about 2 miles behind you, I would imagine,
yes,
standing around in front of the building. There appears to be, those are agents that have made their way to the front of the building?
Most likely those are agents, and the one we believe who jumped from the roof was an agent.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that federal agents had made their way onto the roof of the compound.
Is there any sign of any firefighting equipment at this point? How long is it expected to take to get there?
At this point, we have not seen any firefighting equipment on the scene. Don't know how long. It should come up this road. There really are only 2 or 3 roads that lead up to Double E Ranch Road, which is the road that the compound is on. We have not seen anyone come past here at this checkpoint.
Vicki,
I don't know if they're coming in other sides, but really there should be someone coming through this way. At this point, with the magnitude of this fire, they need to be surrounding the compound on all sides.
And Vicki, obviously by the pictures that we could see of the compound, it has gone up in flames quite rapidly, indicating perhaps that the construction was fairly open inside. Again, we want to repeat that there are 95 people believed to be inside that compound, 17 of them children. Vicki, we heard Special Agent Ricks this morning in his morning briefing say that he believed that there was some underground lattice work underneath the compound, perhaps as small as crawl spaces. We see in the picture, I should point out, a man walking out of the compound with his hands over his head. Is there a possibility, Vicki, that some of the people inside the compound are actually underground in shelters and may not be in the thick of things as we see this compound burning down?
There is, as you said, one person who has come out with his hands up, and there is a possibility. Agent Rick said it is like a basement, but mostly it is like a crawl space. But supposedly, cult members have been using this underground area for target training. So it is possible that some of them have gone down underneath, but with the construction of these buildings, it's going to collapse in on the crawl space or basement, no matter how deep it is. So that is not a safe area for them to be at all.
Vicki, is there any assessment by the FBI as to what the cache of weapons inside the compound is and whether there is the possibility of explosions that might be connected with this fire?
One of the things that got the ATF started on an investigation of this was that a box being shipped to the compound by UPS broke open, and inside they found hand grenades, and allegedly UPS alerted ATF that there were hand grenades going there. Now, federal agents say that they know that the Branch Davidians have at least $100,000 worth of weapons inside. Most of them, they believe, purchased legally, but also some converter kits purchased that change semi-automatic weapons into fully automatic weapons, which are illegal. And one of the things they've been very, very concerned with throughout these long 51 days is that the entire crime scene is being altered, which would include those weapons being reconverted back to their legal form, thereby destroying part of the evidence in this case.
Just want to point out that in the foreground of the picture that you're seeing, just behind the bus, we saw a man walking out with his hands over his head. There he is again. He appeared to stoop down for a moment, perhaps try to surrender to federal agents who are quite near the compound. There he is walking up to the back of what I believe to be a Bradley fighting vehicle being taken into custody by federal authorities. Vicki, at the beginning of this siege, David Koresh was boasting, saying, don't send in armored personnel carriers, don't send in armored vehicles. We have the weaponry here that would knock a Bradley fighting vehicle 50 feet into the air. Is there a worry at this time that some of that ordnance might be contained within the compound and might lead to an even further escalation of the fire that we see in this picture?
Absolutely, and of course it's entirely possible that that is what has caused the fire already. And ATF agents who were involved in that initial firefight say that they did hear this type of sounds associated with extremely heavy weaponry, perhaps 50 caliber machine guns. And ATF does know from some of the autopsies and some of the shrapnel that was removed from some of the injured agents, they do know that some of those injuries were caused by hand grenades. So it's entirely possible that it is the weapons that are inside that are causing the fire. At this point, we just don't know.
As it happened, Waco will continue here on the History Channel.
Traditional luxury cars. The slumber, the serenity, the isolation. Hey, you're not dead yet. Presenting the supercharged Bonneville, one of the world's most powerful sports sedans. Made traditional luxury, rest in peace. Luxury with attitude. The Bonneville by Pontiac.
Catering a wedding means a long, hard day, so I need the strongest hold.
Introducing Fix-It-Dent Free with the strongest, longest hold of any adhesive. And it has no artificial flavors or colors.
We start the day making fresh tomato bisque.
Fix-It-Dent holds stronger, longer than any free adhesive, or your money back, guaranteed.
At noon, we prepare the fresh vegetables. Nice. By evening, we've got it all together.
Fix-It-Dent Free, a whole new way to fix it and forget it, or your money back, guaranteed.
10 years ago, one school system chose a smarter way to lower costs. Lower energy rates.
If the child is cold, if they're not comfortable, then they may shut down.
Every dollar we drive out of the cost of operations goes back into the classroom.
With Enron, we have saved $3 million or more. For us, it is more than energy, it's a sense of well-being.
In Columbus, lower energy rates are saving more than money. What can we help you save? Enron.
Every day, I try my best to meet the challenges that come with doing the toughest job in the world. That job isn't being president, it's being a parent.
It's tougher than ever to be a good parent. It's a job that none of us can do alone.
That's why 350 wonderful organizations have come together to create the Coalition for America's Children to help parents raise good kids. The Coalition knows hundreds of ways you can help. We hope you will contact the Coalition soon. Thank you.
The History Channel now returns to As It Happened, Waco. As the fire consumed the Branch Davidian compound on that April 19th, 1993 afternoon, it fed on the million rounds of ammunition inside. The FBI could only circle the area, scanning the scene for survivors, able to do little more than wait for fire trucks to finally arrive.
Again, just some information to pass along to our viewers. Since this standoff began at the end of February, some 95 people have stayed with their leader, David Koresh. At least 17 of those people are children. Some 37 people have left the Branch Davidian compound over the course of this siege. This morning at about 5:55 Central Time, the FBI and Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms began a tear gassing operation. They were sending in CEVs, those are combat engineering vehicles, M60 tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles, to try to douse the entire compound, to saturate the inside of it with tear gas. CS tear gas is how the FBI described it, a non-lethal, non-pyrotechnic form of tear gas. It's not the same type of gas that you have seen in riot control in countries like South Korea, where an officer would fire an incendiary device at a crowd. It would then explode and start sending off the gas. This was just gas that was being pumped from the snout of vehicles that was being poked into holes that they had breached in the Branch Davidian compound. So they had tried that operation for some 6 hours. They had gone back again at about 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 12 o'clock Central Time, for another go at trying to saturate the inside of the compound. Shortly after that, white smoke was seen appearing from the roof ridge in the central part of the building, just above the front door. It was believed at that time that it might be just tear gas that had been escaping. Then suddenly, from one of the second floor windows, flames started to erupt. Within about, there we see the pictures of the initial fire getting underway. The smoke was coming from the roof line there. You see it breaching a second floor window. Within minutes after that, the entire central part of the Branch Davidian compound was in flames. And within about 5 minutes after that, it appeared as though the entire compound itself had been engulfed. We have no word on the state of the 95 people inside. We have seen 2 or 3 people come out of the compound, one person being dragged across the ground by what appeared to be a federal agent about 5 minutes ago. However, no confirmation on whether or not that was a Branch Davidian member or if it potentially was a federal agent who was injured in the fire and all the smoke that is going on there in Texas.
John, just a minute. Let me interrupt you because right now we do have a whole convoy of emergency vehicles coming up this road, leading up there. This looks like probably the fire chief and fire marshals, and we have, at this point, 2 fire engines. That was 2 emergency vehicles preceded by what looked like 2 fire chiefs' cars. I can tell you that we also have more coming up the road in just a minute. John, the fire at this point looks to be almost completely out. The fire trucks that we saw going in, we can't say for sure that those were the first ones to arrive on the scene. The FBI and the ATF have maintained much closer to the compound a staging area and kind of their headquarters up there. They may have had apparatus on the scene already, but as we talked about, the buildings apparently are so poorly constructed and made of wood that once they're set, it's entirely possible that they would just go up just like tinder. So it's really hard to say.
We're going to have more from Waco, Texas in just a moment, but if I could, let's turn the special report over to my colleague, Dan Riley.
Thanks very much, Ron.
Let's go to Vicki Mabry near Waco. What you're watching are live pictures from near Waco, Texas, where fire is engulfing the religious cult compound. In Washington, it is said that members of the cult set the fire. Vicki, on the basis of what you know and what you've heard there, is there any reason to doubt that the fire was started by members of the cult itself?
Dan, there's absolutely no reason to doubt that. The FBI was very clear this morning in saying what type of non-lethal tear gas they would be firing in, saying they were not using the pyrotechnic type that they could have fired in. And also, if you've listened, as we have over the last 51 days of briefings, they say that David Koresh and his followers have been prepared, that they believed and they were ready for the end of the world. They may have decided on this type of a suicide pact. It could have been an accident, or truly it could have been a suicide pact. As some of the former members who have come out have said, one girl who I believe is 12 years old, Kiri Jewell, said that she was taught how to put a gun in her mouth in order to kill herself, and that she was told not to put it next to the side of your head because you could survive. So according to former cult members, there was that type of Armageddon suicide kind of mentality going on in there. And if they saw that this is the end of the Branch Davidian group as it has been, they very well may have taken that action.
Is the fire being put out or more or less going out of its own accord?
Dan, at this point, it looks like the fire is really pretty much going out of its own accord. We saw the fire vehicles going up, and it was so late. The structure at that point was literally burning itself to the ground and really pretty much burning itself out. So it appears that the fire had just gone on, and the building, being of such poor construction, absolutely was just a tinderbox.
And on that, Vicki, let's go to Washington and CBS News correspondent Rita Braver. Rita, any word on survivors?
Well, we are being told here in Washington that there are at least 4 people who are being taken to the burn center in San Antonio, Texas for treatment. Don't have any idea on what condition, whether they're men or women, children or adults. We are told, however, that they are cult members and not law enforcement agents. And right now, what I think most people here are focusing on is how all of this happened. As we mentioned earlier, the word here in Washington is that snipers from both the FBI and the ATF posed all around the compound, looked in, and actually say that they saw the members of the cult simultaneously setting fire to the compound in a lot of places just before the flames erupted.
Excuse me, Rita, we need to go to Vicki Mabry on scene in Waco as we hear some sirens in the background. Vicki?
Dan, we have more ambulances coming in. This is 2 additional ambulances, which we hope leads us to believe that perhaps there are more who will be saved after this is all sorted out, after this fire is out. Perhaps more have come out. We have seen probably 7 or 8 ambulances going in. And as we've been talking about the children, the 17 children still inside, I'm reminded that the FBI has told us that there are 2, in their words, very pregnant women inside. One of them we know is 17-year-old Aisha Geifus, who is the sister of one cult member who left very early on, Oliver Geifus. Oliver has been in contact with the press from the McLennan County Jail. He has called a number of press people, and he has expressed each time his concern about his sister. But every time we have talked to him, he has also declared his undying and absolute love for David Koresh.
We are standing by for a news conference by FBI spokesman Bob Ricks. He'll be speaking to the press in Waco. He has just taken the microphone and stepped before the cameras.
And humane efforts by the FBI and ATF agents to bring the Branch Davidians out of their compound had resulted in the peaceful resolution of the standoff. Instead, we are faced with devastation and death. However, I have no question that our plan was correct and was conducted with professionalism and care. I applaud the restraint shown by our agents in the face of life-threatening gunfire, and I thank them for risking their lives to try to end this peacefully. We had over 75 to 80 rounds that were fired at our FBI agents before the gas was actually inserted in the building. The FBI continued broadcasting messages over the loudspeaker system for people to exit the building toward the sound of the speakers to be rescued. Non-lethal gas was inserted into the compound at approximately 6:04 a.m. It is our belief that the occupants used gas masks to protect themselves. There were enough gas masks for all of the adults in the compound. The gas used was non-pyrotechnic CS gas, which does not cause a spark or flame. Also, the delivery system utilized is also non-pyrotechnic. Branch Davidian Renos Abram, that's spelled A-V-R-A-A-M, was picked up by agents near the compound. He was asked about the location of the children, and he stated that the children were upstairs in the bunk area. He also was asked about how the fire was started and stated that he did not know and that he heard them, referring to others in the compound, saying, "The fire has been lit. The fire has been lit." An FBI hostage rescue team member observed a subject through a window in the second floor wearing a black uniform and gas mask, undergoing a throwing motion. The person was knelt down with his hands cupped, from which a flame erupted. A man on the roof was spotted and signaled that he did not want to be rescued. This was after the fire had started. A woman in flames was seen coming out of the compound and tried to run back into the building. An FBI agent exited his armored vehicle, ran toward the building, and physically rescued the female despite her attempts to fight him off. There was no gas being inserted into the building at the time of the fire. No pyrotechnics were used at any time. Surveillance aircraft observed fire starting simultaneously at 3 separate locations. This corresponds to sightings by our snipers. That concludes my prepared remarks. Yes.
Mr. Ricks, is there any idea if David Koresh is alive at this point?
The question is, do we have any information regarding the condition of David Koresh? We have not been able to confirm whether Mr. Koresh is dead or alive.
What about the fate of the children that were inside? Any word on them? And then I have a follow-up.
The question is, what about the fate of the children? Again, unfortunately, we have to assume that the children probably are also dead. There was some statements early on that by people coming out that David had indicated the children had been secured in the bunkers. It appeared that this was one final lie on the part of David's part to assure some people that the children had been taken care of. It appears once again his last final act to the American public was to go through a lie. Yes.
What about, in hindsight, everything looks so much better. Would it have been better to have fire units on the scene just as a matter of course?
Question is, in hindsight, would it have been better to have fire units? I don't think so. We could not roll up fire trucks to the scene while people still were inside and had the capability of shooting those people. Firemen are not paid to go through that. Yes.
Obviously, this is a fulfillment of David Koresh's prophecy. As it boiled down to the very last minute, did you see any other way that this would have been resolved?
Question is, when we came down to the last, did we see any other way to have it resolved? We thought perhaps that we could stem the tide that we saw flowing here, which was ultimately leading to this catastrophic event that was taking place. We were hoping, again, as I stated this morning, by the infusion of gas into that compound, that the women in that compound would grab their children and flee out. That did not occur. Unfortunately, they bunkered down the children the best we can tell, and they allowed those children to go up in flames with them. David Koresh said he played the game. He lied continually to the attorneys. He never intended to come out. It was all a game.
As the FBI unequivocally blamed David Koresh for the fatal fire, Attorney General Janet Reno prepared to face the country and take responsibility for the government's decisions at Waco. When we return, her press conference and the reaction that day from the mother of a survivor of the Branch Davidian inferno. Waco, as it happened, will return here on the History Channel.
I like being in control. With this new Dinerex, I control the cause of my dandruff every day.
New Dinerex Advanced Formula. Its medicine doesn't just treat the symptoms, it controls a leading cause of dandruff called Pio Valley.
Now that's serious control.
New Dinerex Advanced Formula.
So then Doris is driving it, and she says, "But Elliot, I can't feel the road." And I said, "But what do you expect? It's a luxury car." Anyway, we then drive it down the road. Have you ever driven down?
Bored with traditional luxury? It could be time for the supercharged Bonneville, one of the world's most powerful sports sedans.
Do you drive a luxury car, Frank?
You bet your ascot I do.
Luxury with attitude. The Bonneville by Pontiac.
A History Channel special. She was a glimmering giant in the sky.
It was fun.
I enjoyed every minute of it.
The pride of German engineering. Until disaster struck.
It burst into flames, 400 or 500 feet into the sky.
The true accounts of that infamous night in New Jersey.
And I jumped out.
And a tragedy that burned its way into history. The Hindenburg. Tomorrow at 9 Eastern, 10 Pacific on the History Channel.
Lord of the Dance began in Ireland. Then it swept through Europe. And now it's taking the U.S. by storm. From Michael Flatley, star of the international hit Riverdance, comes his all-new music and dance spectacular, Lord of the Dance. An exhilarating extravaganza that surpasses Riverdance in sight and sound. Magical. Sensuous. Dazzling. Seductive. This incredible TV offer, valued at $24.95, is yours for only $19.95. So act now. Call the 800 number on your screen and bring home the magic of Michael Flatley, Lord of the Dance. Call now.
The History Channel now returns to As It Happened, Waco. As the news coverage continued, it was clear even before the flames were out that the decision to approve the tear gas assault was already being questioned. If the government's objective was to bring the Waco siege to a close with a minimum loss of life, it was a monumental failure. And it was Janet Reno's first major crisis as President Clinton's Attorney General.
These are the hardest decisions in the world to make. My heart goes out to the families of the agents killed and those injured, as well as to those children and the families of those who perished in the compound today. We must all reflect on how we as a society can in the future prevent such a senseless, horrible, tragic loss of human life.
Talk a little bit about the authority for the operation, because the question arose because of the president's remarks. Did he approve the plan and not the timing? Did you approve the plan without his go-ahead?
I approved the plan and I'm responsible for it. I advised the president, but I did not advise him as to the details.
Why did you decide today to make this move? What factors went into the timing? Because for 51 days, the agents in place down there had been saying they had infinite patience. They were going to wait for as long as it took. Why move today?
We made some judgments based on the fact that experts told us that the hostage rescue team should not and could not remain in place for any permanent period of time without being relieved. Our experts, and we talked to the experts in the field, said that they were totally frustrated that they had not been able to negotiate anything with Koresh, that they did not think that he would ever come out. We were told that he had more than adequate supplies to last an extended period of time. We had thought that perhaps we could resolve the matter by water, but the water supply continued apparently to be maintained on all the inspections that we were able to make.
General, there appears to be what looks like a studied effort to distance President Clinton from this action. The suggestion that you are accountable, that this is a department operation. Is that an intentional effort on your part or on the part of the White House spin doctors to make this look like your problem and not Mr. Clinton's?
I made the decision. I'm accountable. The buck stops with me, and nobody ever accused me of running from a decision that I made based on the best information that I had. I don't do spin stuff, and I'm not distancing anybody from anything. I'm telling you exactly what happened.
Janet Reno, Attorney General of the United States, continues her news conference in Washington. One of the people who made it out of the cult compound alive today is a 24-year-old man, David Thibodeau, from Bangor, Maine. His mother, Belanda Gainham, has been in Central Texas for most of the siege. I asked her tonight if she had spoken to her son since he escaped today's inferno.
He said it was horrible. He said that they were covered in smoke. It was difficult to know what to do, which way to turn, which way to run. He said it happened very, very, very fast. And that his reaction was just to grab anyone who was around him, move as quickly as he could. He wanted to be out. I gather very strongly that he wanted to be out of that situation.
What responsibility do you attach to Koresh himself?
Koresh is the person who is ill, who is sick in this case. I think what was more necessary was for families and authorities to be working together to establish a point of contact for the people who had fallen underneath David's mind control. I think we have to understand that David was a master of mind control and of thought reform. David Koresh believed completely in what he was doing. But we really believed that if we had had the opportunity to use our voices to make direct negotiation contact with our families, that we might have had the ability to halt the tragedy that we all saw today.
In a few moments, the former wife of David Koresh gives her version of why he took the cult's children with him to their fiery deaths. We will also return to the site 6 weeks after the tragic inferno. Stay with us here on the History Channel.
Fibercon or Metamucil, both have fiber for regularity, but I like Fibercon better.
Same natural action of fiber, same dependable regularity.
Fibercon makes staying regular much easier for me.
Fibercon caplets, fiber regularity that's easier to take.
Are you tired of struggling with can openers? There's always a sharp metal edge. Ouch! Now there's Perfect Can. It opens the safe, easy way without sharp metal edges. Other openers cut a metal edge that's sharp as a razor. Perfect Can cuts so smoothly, it won't even pull these stockings. The secret is the side winding action. It cuts along the side of the can under the thick safety lip. Tired of messy tinfoil covers? Perfect Can's lids fit safely on top of the can. Ordinary openers get stuck. What a mess! Perfect Can cuts a perfect circle in seconds. The handle turns quickly and easily, then just discard the lid. Perfect Can is dishwasher safe. Now order Perfect Can for only $14.95. Order now, and as a bonus, get the deluxe bottle and jar opener. Pops open the tightest seals, the world's best can opener and the best bottle opener, all only $14.95.
To order Perfect Can, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-931-6700 or send check or money order for $14.95 plus $3.95 shipping and handling to Perfect Can, 507 Maple Leaf Drive, Nashville, Tennessee.
Log on at www.historychannel.com. It's where the past comes alive.
We must be the great arsenal of democracy.
In a time of struggle, in an era of conflict,
we shall never cease to persevere against them,
comes a series that documents the decisions of men.
All ships of any kind bound for Cuba
who shaped the world. The history classic, Men in Crisis. Monday at 10 Eastern, 11 Pacific on the History Channel.
Every month, the compelling true stories of extraordinary people. From A&E comes Biography Magazine. In the April issue, Mel Gibson. Order now, and with your paid subscription, you'll receive David Crosby's latest CD, presented by the King Biscuit Flour Hour. Enjoy an entire year for only $18. Call 1-800-831-1616 and order Biography Magazine, because every life has a story.
Welcome back to the History Channel and our presentation of Waco as it happened. On April 19th, 1993, journalist Dan Rather spoke with one person who was very close to David Koresh, Robin Bunds.
Few people knew cult leader David Koresh as well as Robin Bunds. She used to be married to him, and they had a son together, now 4 years old. Robin Bunds left Koresh and the compound 2 years ago. She joins us tonight live from Pomona, California. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Bunds. Were you surprised by what happened today and how it happened?
I was very surprised, and I was shocked, and I was very sad, and I did not expect this to happen. I did not expect him to kill everybody.
Do you think Koresh had this kind of suicide pact in mind all along?
No, I don't. I think that he might have planned on coming out, but I think what happened is that he just felt cornered and felt he had no choice and just did what he did because he felt there was no other way out.
It's one woman's opinion, but you've had time to think about it. Anything in your mind that you say to yourself, well, might have prevented this from happening?
I really don't think there was any way to prevent this because he is so stubborn and there is no way. He's right and you're wrong. It doesn't matter. He doesn't listen to anybody.
How was it that he was able to exert such control over the people with him, Ms. Bunds?
He didn't control us all at once. When we first started, he had very little control over us. It came gradually. And then eventually he had full control over us, our bodies, our minds, everything we did, we thought we wanted to do, we would ask his permission, but it wasn't all at once. It's a brainwashing.
How could he have taken the children down with him to death?
He believes that they're all going to come back. He believes that they're going to be resurrected, and that since he is God, his children are God's children. They're perfect. They're God's seed, and they're going to repopulate the earth with this seed when they come back. And these children will be special children because they're martyrs for God.
Robin Bunds in Pomona, California. Thank you. The cult standoff in Central Texas and its violent end today were eerily familiar. It's happened before. For example, remember Jonestown? And as correspondent Bill Lagatito reports, it could happen yet again.
On the TV set in her living room, Ruth Mosier watched the siege in Waco come to its terrible end. Her daughter Sherry, who lived at the compound, may have willingly followed David Koresh into death. And Ruth Mosier said she knew all along something like this would happen.
I just had a premonition yesterday.
What was that telling you?
About what?
I'd never see her again.
High winds whipped the
Ruth
fire.
Mosier, like many of us, remembered this was not the first time a cult standoff ended in fire or violence. Philadelphia, 1985. 11 members of the radical environmental group called MOVE, unwilling to give themselves up, died when a police bomb set their headquarters and the neighborhood on fire. And Jonestown, 1981. 900 followers of Jim Jones committed suicide rather than rejoin the outside world. How could federal authorities not think today's long ordeal would end in a similar fashion?
Watching them die was like watching my family die again.
Winona Norwood lost her mother and 26 other family members at Jonestown.
Here we go again. It's pathetic. These ego, power-hungry maniacs. Why can't they be stopped?
Stephen O'Leary is an expert on so-called Armageddon cults.
These groups have one common thread, which is that at all costs they don't want to be proven wrong. They will go to great lengths, even to taking their own life, to to validate their belief.
Only David was leader, and God is in control now. God is the leader now.
Karen Doyle is a Branch Davidian living in California. Her thoughts today on David Koresh.
I don't believe he's dead. Not in that sense. I mean, in the spiritual sense.
Her father was in the compound in Waco today and survived. She's not sure if her sister died with the others.
It's been weeks since that windy day in April when fire destroyed the David Koresh compound outside of Waco. In that time, investigators have basically kept everyone away. Tonight we have exclusive photographs, the first independent videotape we know of taken actually inside the compound. Now you'll be seeing this for the first time just as we see it for the first time. These pictures are the closest taken since the fire by any independent authority. There's one of the bunkers, close-up of one of the flooded underground bunkers. One of these bunkers was some 40 feet wide by 120 feet long and roughly 10 feet deep. Now, this bunker is on the northwest side of the compound, outside the foundation of the compound. You can see some of what's collected in the compound. Part of this was used by the cult as sewage relief. The bunkers are supported by concrete walls. There's some real question about contamination in these bunkers. The Texas Water Commission is trying to determine the extent of contamination. That's the most close-up view we've had of inside the compound. The Double E Ranch Road, a once forgotten trail through the Texas prairie near Waco. But that was before David Koresh. Now, the road is jammed with the curious, flocking to get a glimpse of all that's left of Koresh's kingdom.
I think it's pretty sad.
It's scary. It's just real scary.
This confuses me a little bit, trying to figure out who's telling the truth, who's not.
Out here on the wind-whistling prairie, journalists and other independent observers still are allowed no closer than about 200 yards. By officially quarantining the site as a, quote, health hazard, the government's able to keep everybody out. But back there in those piles of ash and debris, investigators unquestionably have a daunting challenge in trying to collect evidence on the murder of 4 federal peace officers, the ATF agents. More than a month after the inferno seen round the world, authorities say they still don't know how many cult members died inside the compound. Another mystery. What was happening inside the compound in those terrible final moments? It took less than an hour to turn Mount Carmel from this into this smoldering ruin. More than 20 members of the cult suffered gunshot wounds, including Koresh. He was shot in the forehead.
I think from the beginning he had a certain set of goals, and that he controlled events to that end. Now that he was going to end it that way, it would have been the same, I think, 30 days before, or 60 days, 90 days, 6 months after. I'm afraid it would have been the same.
It is known that David Koresh died in the compound's communications room near the front entrance. Many of the children were found with their mothers inside a concrete bunker. Dozens of other bodies were found scattered throughout the compound, indicating confusion and chaos as tear gas and then smoke poured through the building. What the government says it found in the ruins is an incredible array of modern weapons documented in this 400-page report. Koresh and his followers apparently stockpiled everything from heavy automatic weapons and hand grenades to more than 1 million rounds of ammunition as they waited for their own personal version of the biblical Armageddon. 6 weeks ago, this site was filled with guns and fire and death. Tonight, all that's left are questions.
As it happened, Waco will continue here on the History Channel.
Catering a wedding means a long, hard day, so I need the strongest hold.
Introducing Fix-It-Dent Free with the strongest, longest hold of any adhesive. And it has no artificial flavors or colors.
We start the day making fresh tomato bisque.
Fix-It-Dent holds stronger, longer than any free adhesive, or your money back, guaranteed.
At noon, we prepare the fresh vegetables. Nice. By evening, we've got it all together.
Fix-It-Dent Free, a whole new way to fix it and forget it, or your money back, guaranteed.
Is what you drive a reflection of who you are? Or is who you are a reflection of what you drive? The answer, of course, depends on what you drive. And right now, for a limited time, you can lease the 1997 Aurora by Oldsmobile for just $399 a month. A proposition worth reflecting on. Aurora by Oldsmobile.
The History Channel remembers.
This is for Texas and freedom.
The Alamo. It was here where freedom lived and heroes died. Alec Baldwin and Raul Julia.
We will go home with honor, or we will not go home.
In one of history's greatest standoffs.
Mexico, finally, for the Mexicans.
The Alamo. 13 Days to Glory. Next on the History Channel.
You're watching footage that's never been seen before. Actual nuclear bomb tests, air bursts, underwater explosions, even the bomb itself. In accordance with the Secretary of Energy's openness policy, these scenes and many more have just been declassified and are now available on home video.
We deal with classified footage all of the time, and I can tell you we've never seen anything like this.
Own this historic collection of video, detonations, troop tests, accidents, scientists caught unprepared, the shock waves, the tidal surges, all of it fully narrated. Order America's Atomic Bomb Tests. If you enjoy history, weapons, or military aviation, we urge you to order now. There has been nothing like this before.
Call now 1-800-490-1818 to order this exciting, recently declassified footage of America's atomic bomb testing for only $19.95 plus $3.75 shipping and handling. That's 1-800-490-1818.
It is now February 26, 1994. 1 year and 2 days since the 4 ATF agents were killed at the Branch Davidian compound while trying to arrest their leader, David Koresh, for illegal weapons possession. A Texas jury returns a verdict in the case of those charged with the agents' murders. And by no means is it the end of conflict between cults and the government.
It was 1 year ago Monday that 4 federal agents were killed when they stormed the headquarters of the Branch Davidian religious cult in Waco, Texas. 11 members of the cult were charged with murder and conspiracy in the case, and today a Texas jury found all 11 not guilty on those counts.
The ATF will continue to do its job in a lawful manner under the Constitution, and we fully accept the verdict of this jury.
But critics blame the Treasury Department, which controls ATF, and Justice, which approved the FBI's final deadly assault on the compound.
This verdict today is a clear-cut victory for the defense, and more importantly, it's a clear-cut condemnation of the government conduct on February 28th.
A little more than a year after the trial verdict, on the anniversary of the Waco fire, a huge bomb destroyed the federal building in Oklahoma City, killing more than 160 people. While there was rage about the crime, there was also anger and frustration with the government itself, a government who many thought had, by its actions, provoked the bombing.
I promise you, we're not going to give up our guns.
The Michigan Citizens Militia, one of several groups with similar names, denies any connection to the suspects in the Oklahoma bombing. But federal agents are looking into the militia movement for clues to a possible motive. A Montana militia newsletter obtained by CBS News points to April 19th, the day of the bombing, as a day for action. It was on April 19th of 1993, the newsletter says, that the Branch Davidian complex in Waco was burned. And April 19th, 1992, that alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agents first tried to raid white supremacist Randy Weaver's home in Idaho.
The ATF are the criminals, not me. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I didn't shoot Randy Weaver's wife in the face. I didn't murder 80-some people at Waco.
What about this sort of fixation with David Koresh and what happened at Waco? What is that draw?
It's the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to bear arms. They weren't hurting anybody. Why did the government have to go in there and do what they did?
And that has kind of galvanized this movement, hasn't it?
Right, in a sense it has. It was never taken to a court because they were killed by the people that invaded there. The rightful way they should have gone was to taken them to court, but they never did it.
I don't know how many weapons he's had. You know, they had an X amount of people that were involved that lived in that facility. One weapon to each person. Is that so strange? I don't think it's strange at all.
They just took his rights away. That was the main thing. They just took his rights away. And they're doing it every day. We're constitutionalists. We just want our Constitution back.
David Thibodeau is one of only 9 Branch Davidians who survived the fire.
I believe that there are spiritual retributions that manifest themselves in this world. Is Oklahoma that? I don't know. Possibly. Possibly. All I'm saying is...
No, wait a minute. You got to be careful here. Are you saying that the Oklahoma bombing was some sort of spiritual...
I'm saying that you don't go in, you don't shoot at women and children, you know, you don't CS gas them, and then you don't burn them out, okay? And expect that there's no God that is going to see this, that is going to be upset.
Thibodeau believes the Oklahoma City bombing could have been avoided if the government had been more open about Waco.
If the Congress would open up again what happened at Waco and lay everything on the table, God, if our government would be honest with us for a change, then the people wouldn't need to feel this kind of anger. We could trust. That's why people are so frustrated.
I will never forget Waco, and the ghost of Waco will be with me all of my life.
One of the minor tragedies of Waco is that we will never know what the right judgment was.
After the soul-searching, congressional hearings, and internal reviews that followed the Waco tragedy, the procedures and strategies used by the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms were reevaluated. Then, in Montana, in 1996, another high-visibility armed standoff unfolded. FBI agents were called in to negotiate with barricaded tax protesters, calling themselves the Freemen. After 81 days, the Freemen surrendered. Not a single shot was fired. For the History Channel, I'm Karen Stone. Thanks for watching.
Stay tuned for the story of the legendary men who led Texas in the struggle to overthrow Mexico. Alec Baldwin and James Arness star in The Alamo.